Gadgets were introduced to Brawl Stars in March of 2020, but since then over 150 have been added into the game, but a handful have been removed for various reasons, and today we'll be going over every gadget that was removed to see what they were and why they got removed. So let's get right into it. First up, we have Power Surge, which was a gadget for Surge, and it was his first one, with him having it at launch. And this one was quite controversial, with some people saying it was completely broken and overpowered, while others were saying that it was fine. This gadget will let him teleport 3 tiles ahead of wherever he was facing, and you could basically just use this without any sort of delay or cooldown, and it was a really good way to just get around places. But obviously it was much stronger when used in actual combat situations. And personally, I definitely do think that this gadget was extremely powerful and definitely deserves to get removed, and I really don't get why anyone would think that it was balanced in any way. One reason for this is because this gadget would literally let him teleport through walls and just surprise enemies, and there was very little they could do. I forget what the exact numbers were, but basically if the enemy brawler has less than somewhere around 4,500 health, then they would just almost instantly die because you could unload 3 shots from Surge really fast, and unless you missed, you were almost guaranteed to kill the enemy unless they had some godlike reaction time. Plus, even outside of just murking unsuspecting brawlers, the teleporting was also a little too good at being able to gain and maintain control on certain maps, and especially for certain game modes like gem grab or heist. And you were able to gain control since you could kind of be everywhere at once, and it was definitely very annoying to play against. And this gadget also had a very obvious use, which was just be able to run away quickly, which is also something that enemies just hated since you could teleport away from a fight if you were getting low, and if there was cover nearby, then enemies really couldn't do much other than just try and catch up. And I mean, all of that is essentially why the Power Surge gadget was so strong, and people have been complaining about it for so long, and we're asking for it to get nerfed, but it never did. And instead, like 2 years later, Supercell just completely reworked the gadget and turned it into something completely new that would basically give Surge 2 upgrades for 10 seconds, and even this was quite strong, so it ended up getting nerfed to just 1 upgrade, and I think it's fairly balanced now. But next up we have Backup Mine, which was a gadget for Tick, and it was added in March of 2020 and was removed almost exactly 1 year later. What this gadget did was make Tick dash forward, kind of similar to Surge's teleportation, and it placed a single mine that would do 700 damage. Yeah, I mean, that was about it. I suppose a dashing could be pretty useful, but him just placing 1 mine really didn't do much. I mean, what was a single mine going to do? This was a pretty useless gadget in my opinion, and I didn't really like it, but it was the only Tick gadget in the game for about 11 months, so I guess no one really had a choice in using it or not. And when Last Hurrah was added in April 2021, pretty much everyone would instantly switch over to it, and the Backup Mine gadget had really just become a meme because of how bad it was. And in March of 2021, just a month after Last Hurrah was added, Backup Mine ended up getting removed and got replaced with Mine Mania, which just made it so that Tick's next attack would shoot 6 mines, which was double the normal amount. And in all honesty, this wasn't too great of a gadget either, but I mean, it definitely was an improvement from Backup Mine. But next up, we actually have 2 gadgets that both belong to the same brawler, who was Penny, and both of these were removed at the same time during a massive rework of Penny, which also removed and replaced their previous star powers. But first up, we have the Pocket Detonator, and it was their first gadget since it came out in March of 2020 in the Gadgets update. What this gadget did was blow up per turret, and this would cause it to obviously deal damage and knock back whatever was around it. Plus, it could also blow up walls, which could be pretty useful. And the main sort of problem with this was that it was really just a gadget that you could only use in relatively close range situations, and its main purpose was really to just counter assassins like Edgar. And the problem with this was obviously that Penny was a long range brawler, so a gadget that helped with long range things will be more useful in most cases. And well, in a major rework in June of 2022, this gadget was changed, so it was now called Salty Barrel, and it was completely reworked so that it would drop a barrel that acted like a barrier to protect her, and it would also make her attack deal splash damage. And so this was obviously a much better gadget in my opinion, since it really played well into her long range by giving her protection and enhancing her attack. Also, the pocket detonator gadget would kind of get reworked into a star power called Master Blaster, and what this did would make the cannon deal 1000 damage and also deal knockback when it was deployed, so it was pretty similar to the gadget except that it just couldn't destroy walls. But her second gadget was called Captain's Compass, and it was added to the game just 5 months after the first one, and it was also arguably one of the worst gadgets in the game at the time. What it did was make her cannon shoot 5 cannonballs onto her whenever you activated the gadget, and while this obviously seemed like it could come in useful, in reality it just never really worked out how you wanted it. First of all, if you use the gadget right after placing the cannon, then all 5 cannonballs wouldn't come out. Most people said that they only got around 2 to 3, and I'm not exactly sure what the mechanics behind it were, but it was something about spawnable things having some sort of short delay, so that would obviously be a problem in tight situations where you don't have like that extra second to waste of you just waiting. And therefore a lot of people didn't really like it. Plus the cannonballs would also just stop coming out after you died, so it wasn't even any sort of last ditch gadget you could use right before you knew you were going to die, because the cannonballs would just stop coming out and it would prove to be pretty useless. So it obviously ended up getting completely reworked and its name got changed to Trusty Spyglass, and it instead now made the cannon just shoot at every visible brawler in range. And this was definitely better than what it was before, but it was still just alright in my opinion and wasn't anything exactly too special. But next up we have Auto Aimer, which was a gadget for Piper, and this was basically removed just 2 months after being added in the Gadgets update, and this was because it honestly just sucked. It shot 4 tiny bullets that would deal 500 damage each, and while they were advertised as homing bullets, they would really only ever hit their targets if they were moving in a straight line or were already very close to you. And even if they hit, then they obviously still didn't do much damage, so that gadget ended up being pretty useless since it really wouldn't help defend her, and if like a tank was already very close to her, then she was almost guaranteed to lose. So it ended up getting reworked just 2 months later, and while the name stayed the same, what ended up changing was that it was only 1 bullet now instead of 4, and it would do 100 damage, but it would also deal knockback and slow down whatever it hit. And this was way more useful than how the Auto Aimer gadget was before, and a ton of people were really happy with this change. But finally we have Heat Ejector, which was a gadget for Carl, and this one actually ended up getting worse after the rework. Originally it would drop hot rocks, and for every second an enemy was stepping on them for, it would deal 600 damage. And this was actually really good when you paired it with his super, as you would be able to get quite a bit of DPS if the enemy brawler stepped on the hot rocks. Plus, it was also really good on heists for stacking the damage onto the safe, which was really strong, but with the rework the damage wouldn't be stackable anymore, and instead it would just deal 1200 damage over a period of 4 seconds if someone stepped on the rocks just once. And this was really just such a nerf, since obviously the gadget wouldn't be useful in heist anymore, which was the main thing it was really good for. But it has also been argued about whether or not the rework actually was a nerf, so let me know down in the comments what you guys think. And with that, we're also at the end of the video, so hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.